Hey folks, welcome back to another Dice Tower Daily Chat. Mark, and tonight I have my good friend Trisha Hershberger with me. Trisha, how's it going? How
Hello.
are
Things are what things are
you?
right
Indeed.
now.
Well, you are an amazing host, you are an amazing cosplayer, and an epic gamer. So, I mean, we have all kinds of stuff we can talk about, right?
That is so very kind of you to say. Yeah, I mean, normally all my content revolves around gadgets, a lot of like PC
Yes.
building
Yeah.
and video game tech, so VR and stuff like that, and video and tabletop games, which I know you are an expert in.
Yeah, I am. So, well, of all the hosting stuff that you do, what's some of your favorite things?
Oh man, I've been really lucky to have a job consistently for the past almost decade, which is crazy. Talking about stuff I like. Like
Yes.
I got my degree in theater and moved to LA, to be a performer
Yeah.
like everyone else. And I didn't even realize at that point that the stuff that I liked as a hobbyist could somehow meld in with the performance training that I got in college and make a career. So it wasn't until I went on an audition where they started asking me, like, normally on hosting auditions in LA, if you are a girl, they want to know what you know about fashion, what you know about makeup, what you know about celebrity gossip. And that's always where I would like lose the audition
Uh,
because my read would be okay. But then when they asked like what I was passionate about, and I was like, oh man, there's this really awesome fantasy novel series by George R. R. Martin. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. Then it's like lost the job, just job out the window. But I went on an audition where they were looking for that, but never posted it in the job posting. So I didn't know they were looking for that. And like there came that part of the audition where they were like, so tell us what you know about. Well, it surprised me because they were like, tell us what you know about video games. And I was like,
oh, hey, wait a minute.
oh, okay. And it just seemed like normally at this part of the audition, this is the part where they tune me out.
Right.
And they seem to be getting more interested. So I was like, oh yes. And that was like when this light bulb went off of like, I can just nerd out about stuff I love
Yes.
and still entertain people, and that can be a job.
Right?
Like that had never I was like, that is the coolest thing. So I've been so lucky since that time to just get gigs where they're like, hey, you want to nerd out about this retro gaming console? Hey, you want to help us build a PC? Hey, you want to just like live stream video games for a while and we'll do goofy challenges every 20 minutes, like stuff like that if you could have told my teenage self that's what I would be doing as an adult, I would have lost my mind. And I'm sure you feel pretty similarly.
Oh, yes, very much so. Yeah, absolutely. It's a thing where if you had told me, like, so I've been doing this for like 6-7 years now.
Mm-hmm.
If you told me like 10 years ago, hey, you're going to be doing videos and doing all this stuff and thousands of people watch, I'd be like, no, I'm not doing that. But
what
I love
were you
it.
doing before?
What
was your day job?
My day job was in the tech industry. I spent 20 years,
Nice.
and I went from just a simple HTML slinger to being a full coder to then being a manager of the entire Fort Collins tech department. And I did that for like 10 years. And I loved that job for a long time. But the last couple of years of it, it was rough. But it was. I really liked working in tech because it was right up my alley, right? I mean, as you, same kind of thing. So, it was all about coders. And the thing that was interesting was that I was very visual as well, right? So the thing there was that I was the only coder that could talk designer. And so I would have to help all the other back-end guys go, this is what they mean. They're like, oh, why did they just say that?
Yeah.
I'm like, well...
Well, because you have the creative angle as well as the tech knowledge.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, that was the weird thing for me. Like, I studied Shakespeare, like, in college. That's what I did originally. And then, I mean, I learned how to mod PCs when I was really young because my parents, as a kid that grew up in the 80s, my parents were like, video games, isn't that for boys? Like, shouldn't you be playing with Barbies and My Little Ponies? And, like they kind of looked over the fact that I really liked Ghostbusters and Ninja Turtles. Like they were okay with that. But then when I got the NES, original NES Entertainment Console, and that's all I wanted to do all day, every day, my parents were pretty harsh about, like, no more of that. So they didn't take it away, but they were 100% unwilling. Like Sega Genesis, Super Nintendo, Game Boy, none of that was an option.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So we had a PC in the house for schoolwork and stuff. So I had to figure out how to make our home PC, which was not awesome, run these games I wanted it to run, because that was my only outlet then for video games. And so, like, I remember when PC games came in a big old box. I remember looking at the big old box on the back and saying, okay, I need 4 MB of RAM. How do I get that? Internet wasn't a thing, so I couldn't just Google a YouTube video or anything. So it was like, it was a climb. But I figured, I mean, you can tell how long ago it was by the way that I said it needed 4 megabytes
I remember.
to run that game.
Right.
I think that was Doom, original Doom.
Oh my gosh. So the original Doom, so the thing about most of those games back then, right, you had to create a specific boot floppy to get the game to run properly, right? Because you needed every ounce of the computer to handle the game. But the thing I remember most about Doom, the very first playing it, was the fact that a buddy of mine got on and did a modem to play multiplayer. And the first time I was up in the tower and he's running across the courtyard, I was like, oh, this is the most amazing thing ever.
It is.
Right. So and I remember that day, we started in the morning, and suddenly my wife came home and I'm like, wait, why are you home? We were just played all day. It was just gone. Yep. The day was gone.
Yeah, I did that. There have been numerous games that I've done that with, but probably my biggest one was I didn't get to play Myst until I was in college.
Oh, no.
And when I was in college, I hadn't gotten it because there were other games I was playing, and people were like, that game is so hard, you don't want to play that game. So when I got to college, someone said, which I get kind of competitive, but someone was like, oh, you'll never beat that game without a walkthrough.
What?
Which to me, I was like, challenge.
So
I got it, and I played for almost like 2 days straight because time just went by. Like, I found myself skipping meals, and I was in college living in the dorms, so it was like, oh, yeah, the cafeteria is open for dinner between 6 and 8 p.m. or something like that. And I'd start at 3 and, like, look at the clock and it's 11 p.m. And I'm like, oh, I just totally missed dinner. How do I have a cup of noodles in my room? And, like, that's how I existed. But it took me, I think it was just under 2 days, but I beat it without a walkthrough. And I was like, thank you. But I was like, I came kind of close to being one of those stories you read about on the news where it's like, gamer forgets to eat and drink for 2 days, found passed out. Like, I was almost that person.
I've done that, and it's crazy when you realize that, wait, it's been 2 days?
Yeah, Sims is another one. Sims or SimCity or any simulation games that time passes in the game. I get very into, like, pause, rearrange everything the way I need it to, fast forward twice speed, like, and I'll just mess with it. And in the game, I'm like, oh, well, only one game day has gone by, and then again, you look at the clock and it's like, cool, it's been 7 hours.
Right. And let's see, 40K says that Myst had a great soundtrack, right? And that was one of the things about Myst that no games had really done before. There's like, there's a little bit of a soundtrack, but
original Baldur's Gate soundtrack.
That's true.
Was my background music for every D&D session in high school.
But it wasn't Myst Epic, though.
Well, I hadn't played Myst yet at that point. Because Baldur's Gate, I used the soundtrack all through high school for D&D sessions, and I didn't play Myst until college, so it's a hard comparison for me. It is.
But man, I remember that, like, first time playing Myst going, wow, this is like a movie, Yeah, well, it felt like a movie, and the thing that hit for me was I was like, this is one of the first games that I've played that felt like it was marketed to and specifically for adults. Yes.
Adult gamers. Because everything back in that time was, like, marketed towards 6-year-old boys.
Yeah. It felt that way.
It felt that way. Yeah. And even the games that were a little older, a little more mature, it was like, okay, 12-year-old boys. But Myst was, like, the first game that I was like, this is art. This is, like, really something beautiful that I can cherish and appreciate as an adult.
I just,
very cool.
could not get enough of it. It was just so incredible. Like, it's one of those games that came after were like, yeah, that was pretty good, but the first time, right, with Myst was just like, wow.
I know, I love it. Did you, when they put up the Kickstarter for the 25th anniversary edition, did you Kickstart back it?
I did.
Did you get any of the backer rewards?
I did, actually.
Yeah, because I was going to say.
Do you have it handy? Mine's in the other room. So. Yeah,
mine's right over here, but it's out of reach, and I don't want to leave camera. But it's a big Myst replica book that you open it up, and there's an LCD screen that plays the opening and the music. And like when I got it in the mail, I literally burst into tears with joy. I was like taking all these pictures of it and all this stuff, and my husband was so funny because he was like, I don't know that I've ever seen you this happy, like, including on our wedding day. I was like, no offense, I love this game so much, and I'm so excited because I always wanted a real linking book, and now it's here.
It's awesome. It's so funny because, when I got it, right, I was showing everybody, and now it's just up on the shelf collecting dust.
Yeah. Oh, I see Kabuki Kid in your chat.
Yes.
It says Game Girl from the 80s, too. Awesome.
Yes. Kabuki Kid is awesome. So.
Yay.
Yeah.
I love it.
So you had a PC for gaming. So what was your first console then?
My actual first console was, I believe, some type of Commodore 64, I believe. And I don't really know because my friends all had Nintendo, and I was asking my parents for Nintendo for a long time, and they didn't want to get it for me because, again, they were, thinking, like, this is really, like, a boy's thing. Are you sure that's what you want? Maybe she'll get over it and won't ask for it again, But I kept asking for it, and someone that my dad works with was giving away a Commodore 64 because their family had upgraded to Nintendo.
Okay.
So they were getting rid of this Com 64. And my dad was like, well, if you're just going to throw it out, I mean, maybe this will be good for my daughter since she keeps asking for video games.
Right.
So he brought it home with, like, their game collection. And I just remember, like, playing text-based adventures on it. But even that, like, being like, this is so cool.
Right.
And then, but I didn't have a lot of games for that because I was just at the mercy of whatever my dad brought home. And then we finally got a Nintendo.
Okay.
So it was probably, I forget what year the original NES came out, but I probably got it 2 years after. It was like, because it wasn't long. I got my Nintendo and it wasn't long before all my friends were moving on to Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo. So I was always kind of like one console generation behind. But then, I didn't continue on as a console gamer because I just didn't have access to it.
Okay.
I went NES to PC and then was PC all through college. And it was only in college when I, like, started to, have a job and, like, have some independence that I invested money. I think it was a PlayStation 2.
Okay.
It was my next console. So I miss a lot of that retro,
did.
in between. I mean, I played N64 games at friends' houses, but, like, I never played GoldenEye enough to get good at it.
Oh, how sad.
It was like, I've seen people play it. And same thing with, like, Sonic the Hedgehog. Like, even when they're re-releasing all this Sonic stuff now, I'm like, it always looked cool. Like, I maybe played it for a cumulative 2 hours between the times that I played it at friends' houses, but that was it.
Yeah.
It wasn't, like, the muscle memory that I have for the original Nintendo games or the fond nostalgic memories that I have of old PC games. So, I mean, that impacts me to this day. I am most comfortable gaming right here in this chair. This is my station. We have an Xbox downstairs, and I have a PlayStation for the exclusives. But if a game's released on all platforms and PC is an option, I will choose PC.
Choose that. Yeah, I used to be a huge PC gamer, and then we put a theater room into the basement. And I have a 120-inch screen to play on. So...
That's so cool!
Consoles are just easier to play down here.
That's awesome.
But yeah, I mean, I totally understand. Definitely. So, you do a lot of hosting, but one of my favorite shows, right, is the Dungeon Rundown.
Yay!
So, we have a question from John Paul. How much fun is it hosting the Dungeon Rundown?
It is so much fun. So for people who don't know what the Dungeon Rundown is, it is the after show for the tabletop RPG show, The Dungeon Run.
Yes.
And when they were looking to do an after show and they were looking for a host, I had a couple friends actually suggest me because they were like, we need a host that knows Dungeons and Dragons.
Yep.
And fortunately, a bunch of my friends in the industry were like, oh my God, have you talked to Trisha Hershberger? And when I came in and kind of talked to the team about it, they were like, so tell us what you know about D&D. And I was like, well, I started with 2nd edition AD&D in high school, and they were like, good, great, thank you. And then we just nerded out for like an hour.
That's amazing.
Great. It was really, really cool. And yeah, I mean, the Dungeon Run is honestly such a good show. I know I don't have to tell you that because I know you're a fan of it the same way I'm a fan of it. But it is like, Jeff Kanata does such an amazing job as DM. The world he has built is so fantastic. He homebrews creatures all the time because he knows a lot of his players are very familiar with Dungeons and Dragons. And if he used just like an out of the monsters manual creature, they would instantly know, how many hit points it had and all of its abilities and weaknesses. And so it's lovely that he can do that. And then there's this supportive team at the Dungeon Run that builds these amazing sets, right? And helps you as the audience be able to visualize it. And the production quality is so good. Like, it's not the standard locked off shots for everybody that we're so used to seeing in online role playing. And the actors just bring it. They are so
totally bring it.
Wonderful. It always amazes me how wonderful they are at moments of levity in the midst of very, very serious high stress moments. And it's not something that the DM has to bring in. Like, I'm so used to being involved in the games where the DM is the one who completely manages that flow. Jeff is able to toss to his players quite a bit. And they will pick up and dribble and pass to each other, and it is really it's such a community of storytellers there. And then they incorporate the audience into the storytelling too,
which is amazing.
Forces of good and forces of evil. It's really neat. And so my job on the rundown, is to chat with everybody and say what was going through your mind when this happened. And Jeff, was this what you thought they were going to do in this moment? And it's just really fun to pick it apart after the fact and kind of give some fan theories about where it might go next, and kind of give the audience more personal insight into the cast than they get from just watching the game.
And you do such a good job with just bringing the actors in and getting them to expand upon what they did in the game, and just the conversations around that just are so fun. I mean, if you're watching the Dungeon Run, you have to watch the Dungeon Rundown. I mean, it's just... Oh,
that's so nice of you to say. Thank you. Good. I mean, we just have a great time. Again, it's just like, oh, cool, you just want me to chat with my friends about their awesome D&D session for an hour?
I can do that.
Yes. Not only can I do that, I would love to.
Indeed.
Thank you for the opportunity. And so that's how I feel about all of my job.
And like you said, the sets that they put together, I was there the day they brought out the underwater set. So it was amazing, right? So I got to see it
before. Like the working tentacle arms and everything.
It was so funny because I was telling Jessica last week that I went over to look at it before the cast saw it, and Jeff is like, he kept saying to me, "You're not supposed to be here."
So the rundown was already going on by that point, but that day that I came in and just kind of had like my geek out session with the team about Dungeons and Dragons in general, they were able to show me some of the set pieces that the cast hadn't seen yet, and I was like, this is the coolest.
It's so good, right? Yeah.
So good.
So what's your favorite aspect, other than obviously the geeking out with your friends, but is there like a particular part of the Dungeon Run that is your favorite aspect of the show itself?
Of the Dungeon Run?
Yeah.
I mean, really just how wonderfully creative the cast is.
Okay.
From the players to Jeff as our storyteller, they all do such a fantastic job of staying in the moment and really role-playing through the story moments.
Yeah.
Me as a player, when I play, even though it's funny because even though I'm a performer and like I trained in theater and all this kind of stuff, I tend to go very logical meta brain a lot when I'm playing, which is not necessarily the best for performative D&D.
Right.
So it always amazes me that they're so able to stay in it and make it come so alive. It's really cool.
So from Kabuki Kid, we have What RPGs have you played? Anything other than D&D? What versions of D&D did you start with as well? So
in high school, I played a lot of Vampire the Masquerade.
Nice.
Werewolf the Apocalypse. I tried to homebrew my own campaign and then realized I was quickly creating Hogwarts. Just a total Hogwarts ripoff.
That's amazing.
It was like, and they're going to train on all these different islands, and I'm not going to tell the players why they're on each different island, but it's going to be totally based in alignment and yada, yada, yada. And then I realized that, like, the Hogwarts houses are just alignment. Trisha, you totally stole this from J.K. Rowling.
That's so amazing.
I never ran that campaign, but I was very excited about it. I was like, they're all going to be low level because they're still training. And yep, it was Hogwarts. So after high school, I think from there, I still played 2nd edition in college.
Yeah.
Because it's what I knew and it's what I liked. Mm-hmm. And then I didn't get to play D&D for a while. When I first moved out to LA, I was, trying to get any actory job you could get. So I was working as an extra on, I forget what TV show or movie or something. But I met some other people that were talking about D&D. And I was like, oh my gosh, do you play? Do you have a game? Can I join? And so we had a small group that got together on Saturdays for a little while in LA. And I don't remember what edition we were playing, but I only got together with them like 2 or 3 times because schedules don't work out when you're trying to work. And,
sure.
So that made it really hard. And then when I fell into this lovely career that I found myself in, I was able to get introduced to a lot of new types of tabletop games and new systems. I did a show for a long time on Geek and Sundry called Foreververse.
Yes, I know.
Which Foreververse, for anyone who has not seen it, was essentially Quantum Leap for tabletop RPG.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so we had what we called our alpha characters, which is what our consciousness was and what our like main body and persona was. But our consciousness would constantly jump into a new body, but not only a new body, in a new RPG system. So it would be like suddenly we're in 7th Heaven, and now we're playing 7th Heaven for 4 weeks, and then we move to Werewolf, and then we're playing Werewolf for 4 weeks, and then so I got exposed to Puppet Land. Like I got exposed to like a lot of new RPG systems through that. And then something that you and I both had a chance to work on, Mark, was the new Altered Carbon.
Oh my gosh, that was so fun.
Very fun.
The thing that was great about that system was that I didn't know anything about it. And we sat down for the stream, and Ivan taught us on the fly. And it, other than the fact we made characters beforehand, that we had set. But everything else was just like, oh, this is how it works. This is what we're doing. Yep. And it just all made sense. It was a little bit harder to jump in and out of the story, right? Because we jumping in and out of our characters because, oh, wait, how does this work again? That kind of stuff. But I think it was probably the best first-time RPG experience I've ever had. Because,
really?
Yeah, it was just so streamlined and things made sense and they just worked. And
it's because Ivan is so good.
Exactly. I think he's just an amazing teacher for that stuff, right? So it really made the game just a ton of fun. So how about you? But you did like multiple episodes though, didn't you?
I only did one episode of
Only one?
Carbon.
Oh, okay. I thought you did 2.
Yeah, I only did one, and it was to help support the Kickstarter launch, I believe.
It was.
And then, I'm going to be doing a very similar thing in just a few hours from now with Outbreak Undead as well, where it's like, I created the character, I think, how you're supposed to. It's a whole new system, so, like, I tried. I'm sure they'll look at my character sheet and be like, well, this is in the wrong spot and you forgot this. And, because that's how it always works until you learn the system.
Right.
But again, I'm just going to be at the mercy of our fantastic GM, who is B. Dave Walters tonight.
That'll be awesome.
It'll be awesome to lead us through. Oh, and I totally forgot. I also am a recurring character on LA by Night.
Oh,
for anyone who watches LA by Night,
that's
the Vampire the Masquerade show.
Yep.
I play Casey, who's a Bruja, which is really fun for me because Casey is a real badass B word, and I never get to play those roles.
That's awesome.
Because I'm short and I'm perky and I have like a higher pitched voice. Like I never get to play those roles.
The bad guy.
So it is really fun.
Oh yeah,
to get to just be someone it was kind of the embodiment of anger.
Yeah.
Because it's so different from my real life.
Absolutely, right? I mean, that's what's so great about just D&D, any RPG. It's just the fact that you get to take on those roles and do whatever. I mean, I started playing D&D, to date myself, 79 was the first time I played D&D.
That's awesome.
So it was funny when I was talking to the cast, they're like, yeah, we've been playing for 5 years. I'm like, really? That's nice. Yeah, I've only been playing since 79. They were like, what?
Yeah.
So
you started off with original Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, I didn't have the white box, but I had the red box.
Okay.
So
very cool.
Yeah. So, and when you're a kid, it's all about, oh, another group of orcs, let's beat them up, So that's what it was all about in those days.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And then I went from like player to GMing or DMing and so forth, and then we would switch. So we played a fair amount of Gamma World as well. Just because we got to do a ton of different worlds right within Gamma World, so that was fun. And I played a little bit of Vampire. What else? For me it was mostly D&D though. But yeah, it's been a whole slew. But Altered Carbon, I had so much fun. I cannot wait to play it again. I want to get everything for it because just the world that it's created. It's better than the TV show.
Did you see this special Kickstarter backer dice?
Yes, they're amazing.
They're amazing. So for anyone that has not seen them, they essentially just looks like kind of cloudy dice with nothing on them.
Right.
Like all the sides look the same until you shine a blue light on them.
Yes.
And that's how you can tell what you rolled, which is not very practical for actual playing.
But it's amazing.
So cool.
Yeah, right?
It is so cool. And also, I know I kind of saw chat talking about it a little bit before about dice sets.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I definitely am a guilty purveyor of novelty dice.
Yes. I have
I think a lot of us are.
Yeah, I have a lot of stuff from just numerous places, right? And every time I see it, like, oh, I know I have that set already, but I'm going to get this. Like, I'll buy specific dice just for, like, the board game Zaya.
Okay.
So your Zaya is this giant sun. And so I got a set of dice that have the yellow and red, all just specifically for that game, right?
Cool.
So I love dice. I just like dice in games in general. So anytime I see something cool like that, I jump on it for sure.
I laugh because the only time that I become like the stereotypical shopper that's like, ooh, I'm going to spend too much money on this, but I don't care. I can't help myself. Like the only time I do that is at conventions.
Oh, yeah.
Because I just snake up and down the booths to see what, like handmade or specialty made jewelry I can find, or like a small clothing company that celebrates fandom, or, like that's where I do it. And I remember, what was it? It might have been Los Angeles Comic-Con a couple years ago, but I was like, I'm going to buy myself I'm going to buy myself a set of Level Up dice. I've never done it before. Treat yourself. Like, this is my time. Other people, it's like a Gucci bag. Couldn't care less. I wanted some Level Up dice. And I remember taking a picture of the set that I wanted and texting it to my husband and being like, hey, these are really expensive, but I kind of want to get them anyway. And I just want you to know so you're not surprised.
I've done that as well. And I'm like, maybe I've already bought them as well. I just want you to know about it.
Yeah, exactly. And then I tried to make it better by then also spending money on a very fancy leather dice tray and being like, but this is for you. I love that. To this day, when people come over and I pull out those dice, my husband's always like, tell them how much you spent on those dice. But I'm like, but aren't they pretty?
They're amazing, right?
They're amazing.
Well, all those different stone dice, right, with all the different, just so cool. That grabs me every time. And I love the weight. Oh, it's just so tactile.
I love the weight of metal dice. Yep. I feel like once you go metal dice, it's hard to go back.
Oh my gosh, so true. Steve Thomas asked, Trish, did you get used to the transition from second to third edition when you moved from in D&D?
I honestly didn't play a lot of third.
Really?
Yeah, no. I played a lot of second, being like a retro tabletop hipster. Like even when everyone else had moved on, I was like, man, like second edition. So I played a lot of second. Yeah. And then in college, that's what they knew as well, because I think it's what we had all grown up on. And yeah, and then when I moved to LA and kind of took my break and didn't get to play for a long time, I came in at the time that people were like, "Oh, did you hear about this new thing called D&D Next? I heard you can play test it, or you can read, like fifth, which is D&D Next is what 5th edition was called originally.
Yeah.
When it was still just like rumor mill and hot gossip in the Wizards of the Coast world. And so I came in and was like, yeah, let's play test D&D Next. So I kind of skipped from 2 to 5.
Wow, that's huge.
I probably had one-offs.
Yeah.
In between, but I never had a full recurring campaign of anything between 2 and 5.
Yeah, I did them all. I did not like it was just 4, right? 4 was terrible. In between.
That's what I have friends that are like, friends don't let friends play 4th.
No.
And I'm like, I will take your word for it.
So bad. Yeah, not a fan. Okay, so we got to talk about board games. And I know for a fact, so do you play board games, and what are some of your favorites? Yes. But I know that one of the things you started with was Magic the Gathering was one of your favorites.
Yes. It was Magic was like the fun thing that we did in between D&D sessions. Like, oh, we don't have time for a full campaign or a full adventure today. Like, let's just play some Magic for a little bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, I played a lot of Magic.
Was Magic your first intro into board gaming then, so to say?
No, I mean, I had a lot of, it depends what you consider board gaming.
Gotcha.
Like when I was a kid, I was obsessed with Sorry and Monopoly and
Life,
of course, and all of those games.
Yeah.
And trying to get my parents to play them with me was like pulling teeth, but it happens sometimes.
Indeed.
And I remember playing more complex board games in high school. But yeah, Magic was like definitely my first strategy card game.
Yeah.
For sure.
And it's still your favorite, right? As I understand.
Yes. It's funny because once Duels of the Planeswalkers came out,
right.
I was like, okay, cool. I have a physical card collection. I also lost my physical Magic card collection after college, and I say lost as in not I misplaced it. Someone sold my cards.
Yes, I had that happen.
Which is a salty story for another time. But then I was like, okay, do I reinvest all this money in physical cards, or do I just this was the time when I was kind of graduating college and trying to start a career, and it just wasn't of the highest priority, and I didn't have a lot of time for it at that time in my life. And then when I did get time for it again, Duels of the Planeswalkers was out. So I was like, okay, now do I invest in a digital library or do I invest in the physical? And I wish at some point they would come out with something where when you buy the physical card, there's like a code or a QR or something on it, so you could also get it in the digital version of the game.
That would be amazing.
You didn't have to double buy. But because you're kind of forced one way or the other, unless you have unlimited funds, which I don't,
right.
I decided to go digital, especially because I'm living in LA in a tiny little apartment, at this time and all that kind of stuff. I was like, I don't have anyone else in person to play with. Whereas if it's on the video game, I can play whenever I want with online people. And so for multiple reasons, I was like, okay, I'm going to go Duels of the Planeswalker, which Magic the Gathering Arena Online is so much better.
Right.
Than Duels of the Planeswalker was, but that's all I had at the time. And then MTG Arena, I played a bunch in the beginning.
Okay.
And then I kind of felt like it was a little pay-to-winny.
It is absolutely that, I think.
Yeah, and so I was like, this isn't fun.
Yeah, agreed.
And so I haven't played a crap ton of Magic lately. But I do, it will always hold a special place in my heart because I do believe that it is one of the most strategically complex card games out there, and that's why I feel like it's been so successful.
And even
in
in
able to
even the deck building portion before you even play is there's a lot to know.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and when I was playing all the time, I felt really good about knowing a lot of the cards that I'd come up against, knowing a lot of the deck builds that I'd come up against, and it's a little intimidating when you've been out of the game for so long to come back in and catch up.
Yes.
But I am constantly maybe I should just open Magic the Gathering Arena Online again, and or Online Arena, and try it out. Maybe I'll get back into it. Maybe
dabble.
I play every now and then, but because I'm not super current on it, I just don't have a strategy right now.
Yeah. I see that. So I have a similar story. I suspect my mom, while I was at college, sold my Magic cards at a garage sale.
Mom!
Yes, Mom.
No!
I had original cards too, from when it first. And I haven't really played since that happened.
Yeah. I had a 5-year relationship all through high school and the beginning of college. And that person was someone that I gamed with, like, all the tabletop games.
Yeah.
He had my card collection and my dice collection at his house when we split. And when, like, we reconvened 6 months later, or however long it had been, when you're, like, no one's salty enough anymore that you can be civil.
Right.
And I was like, cool, so, like, can I get my stuff back that, like, I left at your place? And he was like, I got rid of it.
Oh,
like, okay.
That's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that really stunk.
Yeah, for sure.
At that point, I was like broke college kid, like I said, eating cup of noodles most of the time. So I was like, okay,
yeah,
cool. I can build back up my library.
Broke college kid for me was the 60 cents box of mac and cheese. That was my.
And the ramen bricks.
Yes, the ramen bricks. Oh my gosh. So. From Magic though, what about board games? Before some of your favorite board games, what is your favorite type of board game?
Oh man, I love deck builders.
Nice. So did you play Clank and Clank Legacy? Have you played any of those?
Which one? Clank Legacy?
Yeah.
No, I haven't. No, like stuff like Seventh Wonder and the Harry Potter game.
The Harry Potter game is a great way to teach new players deck builders.
It is.
Oh my gosh. And then when you get to the final book, it's a real game there. So
yeah, it totally is. And I've been playing a lot of, this is a video game, but it's a card building deck strategy video game, Slay the Spire.
Oh, okay, yes.
Know that game?
I do.
If you don't know that game, you should get into it. But I've been playing a ton of that.
Nice.
So that's probably my favorite genre of board game, closely followed, I would say, by cooperative games.
Nice.
I've really gotten into some of the heavier lifting cooperative games recently. Pandemic.
Did you play Legacy? Pandemic Legacy?
Yes.
Yeah. So good.
Yeah. Yeah, I've gotten more into the co-op games because it's. I have all of our friends, and this is so ridiculous, but I have all of our friends like put into a spreadsheet of how hardcore of gamers they are.
That's amazing.
So that when we have a game night, I can pick the accurate game. Like, if you're inviting over your Cards Against Humanity like friends,
true.
You don't want to break out Axis and Allies.
No.
Like it's.
It's a whole different world.
But I found that cooperative games, when you are having a game night, even people that aren't hardcore gamers can normally at least get somewhat invested in them because it's not competitive and they don't feel like they're lost because everyone can help them.
Right.
And especially having some younger nieces and nephews that are now like 8 to 12 where they can start playing more complicated games, having cooperative games so that you can help them is like so appealing.
Yeah. I'm a huge thematic story-driven gamer as well as cooperative. So like Mansions of Madness 2nd edition is one of my favorites.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's so good. I love it so much. And there's so much content for it. It's just great. I love it. So those are the kind of games that I definitely gravitate towards, ones with big theme, big story.
Yeah.
Because I feel like since I don't get to play a lot of RPG anymore, they give me a bit of that itch without having to spend weeks on a campaign.
100%. Yeah. There are certain board games that are great for that. It's almost like the board game is your GM and runs you through the adventure as the player, which is really, really fun for sure. I saw in chat, Anthony said deck builders are my favorite. I'm like,
yeah. I love deck builders. I've done a handful even recently for Dice Tower previews that I do. And it's interesting because there's a number of people that I know, they're like, another deck builder. I said, yeah, what's wrong with that?
You know what other game I only played a couple times, and it's like a heavy game, so if you're going to get into it, you really want to get into it. But this was a couple of years ago, but I played HeroClix.
Oh yeah,
a couple times,
right.
and I was like, HeroClix is amazing, and I was like, I could go down this rabbit hole hard and spend all of my money and all of my time. And so at the time, I was pregnant, and I was like, I'm just gonna slowly step away from this.
That was wise.
But I could see myself getting into HeroClix real hard.
I have to resist the urge every time I walk by, because I would be like, yes, I want all that.
All of it, of course. I mean, it's all fandom stuff that you already love.
Yes.
Plus a really fun game. Like, it is like the perfect. I was like, oh no. It made me feel like I have a friend who is a huge Star Wars fan, in the 501st, all that stuff, and he like made the most amazing custom setup for Star Wars minis. So first of all, he like bought everything that you need for Star Wars minis, and then some. And then he's an engineer, and he made this table that he built lights into. So the top of the table is like the galaxy, and he can turn on starlights that come up through it. And like, yeah. So I was like, I'm so used to playing Star Wars minis at my friend's house that like I could never replicate this experience, and I am spoiled. So now I can only play that at his house because he has everything in the ultimate setup. But that's how I'm like, where do I find a HeroClix friend
exactly
that already has all of the
all of the
stuff?
I've got a fair amount, but I don't have all of it. So I love that game so much, and anything like that. I mean, I'm a pretty. I mean, I like big story-driven games, but I'm pretty game equal opportunity. From like, yes, let's play. There's some big hero games or things that so we're gonna sit here for 4 hours and barely talk. I don't know if I'm into that.
Yep.
But I definitely like you said, the cooperative games because of the interaction between folks. That's what drives me towards that. And again, with like Pandemic Legacy, the story elements there were so good, right?
Yep.
So I really enjoyed that. So. But
so good. Yeah,
any other board games, though, specific board games that you've played recently?
I'm trying Axis and Allies.
Yeah. Man, you played a ton of Axis and Allies in the 80s.
Yeah, Axis and Allies. But when the 1942 Spring Edition came out, I got that.
You got that one. Okay.
I've been playing that. Boss Monster.
Oh yeah,
I love
Boss Monster is pretty fun. Yeah.
That game is so fun, and one of the creators of it, Johnny O'Neill from Brotherwise Games, he and I worked together for a brief period at Mattel when he was doing like marketing for toy and game design before they founded Brotherwise Games. And so he and I knew each other, so it was really fun when he was like, hey, I'm Kickstartering this game, I'm coming out with this game, and kind of reached out because at this time I was already making content on YouTube.
Yeah.
It was like, is this something you'd want to create content around? And I was like, yes. And at the time, I believe, I could be incorrect, but I believe at the time it was like one of the highest funded tabletop Kickstarters ever, which was huge. So I was like, yes, any way I can help is amazing. Like, quit your day job, just make games. And Johnny actually reached out to me recently and said he's coming out with a new game that I think the Kickstarter launches for pretty soon.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited to play that. I'm like, nice. What's my tracking number? When's it coming here? That's the next one that I'm going to jump into pretty hard, I think.
That's awesome. Did you play, since you played Axis and Allies, did you play any Shogun as well?
I did not.
Oh. Well,
No, now that I have a tiny human, my game night time is
very small. I get that.
It's very small. Like, even Axis and Allies, it's like, cool, you want to play a game for the next month and a half because you can only play in like 45 minute to an hour chunks.
So are you stocking up on hobby games to play with your little one?
I wish. I have some good blue-orange games.
Oh, yeah, good.
Yeah, I have some good blue-oranges that he likes, that he's gotten into thus far, but he's still... A lot of the games he still really doesn't understand.
Yeah, of course.
Like, we can kind of walk him through, like, okay, you roll the dice and it's this number, and now you're going to move this many spaces, and he's kind of like, well, I want my guy to go over here, though. You're like, cool, your guy's supposed to go this way, and he's like, nope, I'm going this way. And I'm like,
love it.
Okay. Like, at what point does it not become fun if I start being a rules lawyer? So I'm like...
Yeah.
I will let him play how he wants to play, and he makes up the rules right now for a lot of games. But I'm excited for when he gets to the point when I can actually play games with him. That'll be really cool.
Well, if you like deck builders, you should check out Moonrakers.
Okay.
So Becca and I played it on Game the Game, and it was oh my gosh, it's so good.
What's it called? Moonrakers?
Moonrakers, yes, Moonrakers. Look it up. So it's just, I think it's close to fulfilling from Kickstarter, but they're going to have all kinds of extra copies and stuff. So they're fantastic guys, and the game is just so good. So that was really fun because I went out and did her show, and then while I was there, she did my show. So it was really fun. So, but you should
that's awesome.
Definitely check that game out because it forces you to negotiate because the contracts early on you can't do on your own. So later in the game, you've built up your deck where you can do the contracts. But, you'd be like, sure, I'll help out this time.
It's very Munchkin in that respect.
A little bit, but not Munchkin.
No, well, and it's, you know what, it's funny that you answered like that about Munchkin. Are you one of the people that really does not like that game?
No, it's the fact that you could play for 4 hours and still have no... So what we do when we do play, we limit the deck greatly, and we say, okay, 45 minutes, we're done.
Okay.
So
wherever you are.
Wherever you are.
Minutes.
Yep.
That's smart. Yeah, that's smart. I know a lot of people that are like, I don't like Munchkin because it's a kingmaker.
Yeah, there's definitely some of that. There's a little bit of that going on.
There certainly is. It depends on the people. Like D&D, it depends on the people you're playing with, I think. But what reminded me of Munchkin when you said that is I was like, because the people I play Munchkin with a lot are all about the wheeling and dealing on the side.
Yeah, there's definitely, and I think that's what I like about, is that wheeling and dealing because, and because of the nature of the game, you make up all kinds of house rules for it, and that makes it more enjoyable as well. And it also, it's funny because even though it's that kind of game, I find that you can still have a little bit of that D&D-esque thing where I'm outfitting my character, right? Or it feels a little Diablo-esque, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, very Diablo-esque. I would give you that. I mean, it's a dungeon crawler card game.
It is. So, and I've done actually a fair amount of dungeon crawlers, Kickstarter-related ones that can't think of the name of it offhand, but they're one that was very Diablo, and it was like, oh my gosh, this is Diablo on the tabletop. It was so good. So, but yeah, I love that. And Diablo is one of my favorite video games.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you play D3?
Yes.
What is your opinion of D3 versus D2?
I have loved them all, but the thing is that Diablo 3 I can play on my Switch on a plane. So yeah, I'm in. And
Diablo 3 I can play with other people on the same console. I can play local co-op.
You can play local co-op,
which is a big deal.
Huge, and especially down here where I can play, it's awesome to play that way. But the thing is that it's so cool, and my daughters both have it. So if I'm somewhere else, we can jump on and play really easily. And just the fact that Diablo is portable, oh my gosh, that's amazing.
It's very cool. Yeah, it's super, super cool. I was very heavily into the first Diablo. Because that happened to be when I was in college. And then when D2 came out, I wasn't able to invest a lot of time in video games, so I didn't play it very much. I got to play a little bit
sad.
of it.
I had a blast with D2.
Because everybody says Diablo 2 is the best Diablo.
Yeah, it really, but it's not the best looking.
3 is okay, it's just too easy.
Yeah, well, especially now. It wasn't initially. It was way harder initially. And they even had the store where you could find items and sell them for real.
Oh, and that was such a scandal.
It was.
Such a scandal. I'm laughing at Kabuki.
Yeah,
chat.
click. That's exactly what Diablo 2 was.
Speaking of that, I found it so fascinating because when they said they were moving Diablo to console, I was like, how are you going to do a push-to-move port of Diablo when it's been so famously click and drag for so long? But I thought they did a good job with it. I still prefer to play Diablo click and drag because
and plus on
I'm
the
a PC gamer.
Yeah, you can customize everything too and how you configure. But I was blown away at how playable. I thought, no way, they're not going to be able to do Diablo. But it is super playable on the consoles.
It's super playable. I wish I could up the difficulty more.
And more quickly.
I have it.
Yeah.
Like I was trying to run through the campaign with my husband on hard, and when you haven't beat the campaign on that console, hard is the hardest you can put it on. And I was like, this is astoundingly easy.
Yeah. So we have
like I feel like it's great for families. It's great if you want to play it with kids. But I was like, I'm so used to Diablo being unforgivingly hard.
Yes.
From my background that I was like, what is even happening right now? This feels like a Lego game.
Oh my gosh, it's true. They definitely catered to more of the faster play, so to say. Sure. Right, yeah. Jared, we all know Jared Kajak.
Jared Kajak!
He's asking about Baldur's Gate 3. Have you seen those previews?
Yes, I have, and I'm so excited.
Me too.
So excited.
What are you looking forward to most?
That the Divinity games were amazing, and so I have full faith that it's going to be awesome.
So, what are you looking forward to most, though, with the 3?
What am I looking forward to most with 3? Just that we're getting and I'm totally having a brain fart right now with the developer.
Oh, yeah.
But here, wait.
I can't think of the developer either.
It's going to drive me crazy. If I
look it up, definitely.
It's the ones who made the Divinity games. Help me out, chat.
Yeah, I can't think of it.
It's Larian.
Oh, Larian. Okay, yes.
Yes. So it's Larian and Wizards of the Coast teaming up to make a game, which I would argue that Larian Studios' Divinity Original Sin and Divinity Original Sin 2 are the best tabletop port to video game experiences I have ever played already.
It was pretty impressive. Yeah, absolutely.
So good. So to now have Wizards of the Coast involved and it being that specific rule set, I'm like, yes, please.
Yeah.
And thank you.
Yep. And so, folks, for those who aren't aware, Jared is one of the cast members of the Dungeon Run who's in chat. He plays Civ, just an amazing character, an amazing person. So
Jared is an amazing human being.
He is fantastic. So and we will have him on the show here at some point. So keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, Jared's role playing inspires me so much, and I don't want to say any specific moments in case there are people in this chat that have not jumped on the Dungeon Run wagon, because I don't want to spoil anything. But give it a shot.
It's totally, the thing is that it's totally episodic. Like, you could easily spoil. It's not like, oh yeah, we did this thing in D&D the other night. No, this is actually, it feels like you're watching an episodic show.
Yes, with episodic arcs to every, and cliffhangers, and
Yep. So good. And the thing about, that isn't a spoiler for Jared's character is the fact that he, life is pain. Yes, it is.
I miss you too, Jared.
Yes, indeed. I can't wait for you all to get back into the studio, right?
I know. I am so the same way. So for those of you who don't know, Dungeon Rundown, the after show that I do, is currently on hiatus with everything going on.
Yep.
But the hope is that once we're back in the studio, that the Rundown will be able to resume as normal. But the Dungeon Run, they're still adventuring on. So there's going to be a lot of content to talk about if and when the Dungeon Rundown comes back.
Yeah, I can't wait for that. That'll be an amazing show. I mean, we always have to like a 2-hour show for that one.
I know. We'll have so much to cover.
Yeah. Because there's so many story arcs happening now. It's so cool, right?
I know.
It's so good. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Do you have a favorite moment that isn't a huge spoiler for the Dungeon Run?
Yes. Favorite moments that are not a huge spoiler. God, there's so many. But I will just say over and over and over again, there are moments where a new, huge, impressive, crazy physical prop is brought out that blows everybody's mind. That's awesome. There are moments where Jeff, the DM, will take players into the secret room for things that only they're supposed to know that are always awesome. There are moments when the characters, the player characters, just roleplay these beautiful character moments off of each other that, like, were not in any way planned to happen in that adventure. They just kind of did, where you'll get backstory in a very authentic and real way that doesn't feel like you're just being read exposition. Like, it's like, especially when you've been watching for a long time, you're like, oh my gosh, I've been watching these characters for a year and never knew this very huge thing about their backstory until it just came up now. And again, it's, I feel like if I was role-playing, the tendency would be like, oh, well, yeah, I mean, that's why I've been role-playing this way, because my character has this in their backstory.
Yeah, right.
but they're not metaing it
No.
at all. They are role playing these beautiful, authentic moments, and there are so many times throughout the series that I'm just like, oh, this is the best. Yes. So it's hard for me to pick like one specific favorite moment, because all of those things are favorite moments.
And even from the early on get-go, there were these main moments, right, that were just between two characters that you're like, oh my gosh, this is something different. This show is definitely something different.
Yes.
And Jeff, like you said before, brings a lot of that to the table for them to feed off of. Right?
Yes, his descriptions and world building are fantastic. His NPCs are amazing and just inspirational. Like, his whole body changes. He really is a stage actor running D&D.
Yep.
It's very cool.
And that's just his storytelling and how he has to switch gears on the fly, which we talked about. I went to his place and we did an interview, and there's some really interesting story things that he has to just quickly change gears. It's really, and you don't even notice. It's totally seamless.
He's so seamless and so good about it. Like, a great example of that, which might be specifically what you're referencing, was when Jared, who's in chat, was like, oh, is there a church in this town? Is there a temple in this town?
Yes.
And so of course Jeff's like, yeah. Okay, I want to go there. And now, Jeff has to create an NPC out of nowhere and have a very lengthy improv conversation with Jared as this NPC that he just made up out of nowhere. And it came off being like so beautiful and motivational and real. And like Jeff just won all of that.
It like seems super easy, right? He's just like, oh yeah, I had this planned.
Yeah.
I love that about him. So
Jared said in chat there's a podcast you can listen to as well. That's true for anyone that wants to get in for Dungeon Run. Oh, I see, because Timon in chat said it's just too long for me to watch.
Oh yeah.
Here's a pro tip if you want to, because when I first started the rundown, I had to cram like 10 episodes of the Dungeon Run very quickly. Both on podcast format and in YouTube, you can double it to 2 times speed.
I have done that as well.
Instead of 4 hours, it's 2 hours.
Especially with the podcast, because I'll go walk in the morning for like 2 hours, and I need to get through it so I can get that episode done.
Yep, exactly. And it was the same for me, trying to juggle everything to make sure that I get it in. And I would usually, because I would listen to it podcast on double speed first, I would do that and then watch it afterwards to like prep for the rundown. So I got two full viewings of it to make sure I didn't miss anything. But I will say, if you're listening to it at 2 times speed, there are certain characters that Jeff does as NPCs that you cannot understand on 2 times speed.
Yeah, it's so true.
Most of the time you're fine, but there are some times that you're like, whoop, okay, gotta slow down.
Yeah.
I can't understand a dang thing that's being said.
It's hilarious, actually. I've had to stop on the trail and go, okay.
Yeah, it depends which part of the story you're in. But.
Indeed. All right, well, we're coming up on the hour, so tell folks where they can find all your amazing stuff that you do.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me.
Yes.
This is so nice to just sit and chat gaming.
I love this because, we've chatted socially and we briefly met when I was out in LA. So it was so sad because we were passing. You're like, oh, wait,
Come back. But yes, thank you so much for having me on the show. If people do want to follow my content on YouTube, I'm Trisha Hershberger, just my full name. Same thing on Twitch. If you like to watch video game streams, I'm probably most active on my Twitch channel than anywhere else right now. And then on the other social media platforms, my handle is that girl Trish with no I in the girl. So it's just that GRL Trish. But I'm on pretty much all the major ones except for TikTok.
Right.
Because I don't got time for that.
Yeah, I don't have time for that either. I'm with you.
I know
100%.
I know I'm going to kick myself ages from now. TikTok is like the biggest thing in the world. It already is the biggest thing in the world. Yeah. But I'm like, my personality and the type of content that I like to make, if you are to follow me on any of these, is I always say tech, gaming, and geek lifestyle. Because I'm kind of, like I'll find like a Death Star cheese board and be like, this is the coolest engagement present for your Star Wars friends. Because that's stuff I never had.
Right.
So whenever I see it, that it exists, I get really excited. So yeah, tech, gaming, and geek lifestyle. And geek lifestyle, I also lump in like sci-fi and fantasy news and comic book related news and entertainment and all that kind of stuff. And it's been a wild ride thus far. And like I said, I'm very fortunate to be able to nerd out about things for a living. And I use the word nerd so lovingly. I had someone at a convention get really mad at me for using the word nerd. And I think it's because they presumed that I was kind of like bandwagoning in on nerd culture now that it's cool.
Yeah. Not at all.
And I always want to turn around and be like, you don't know me.
That's right.
Because I'm like, you don't know that I had to change schools in 5th grade because I was bullied so much for being into the interests that I was into. Like, you don't know that about a person, so don't make assumptions. But I don't go off on that tirade. But I give that disclaimer to say, as someone who was very heavily picked on and called nerd in a very not nice way for a long time, I really love that we can now like reclaim that word. I don't see that as a dirty word anymore because I'm like, we've reclaimed it and owned it and it's ours now and you can't use it again.
Now it's cool. It's super cool, right?
Which is the wackiest thing ever.
I know. Same for me. Because when I was in school, it was not cool to be the nerd kid.
No. It was like, when you went over to your friend's house to play D&D, you did not tell people that's what you were doing.
You did not tell people.
It was like the secret you kept in the basement and ordered pizza out of shame. Like, it was not... You weren't going to cool D&D bars like we have now.
Right, nothing like that.
Not a thing.
Not even close. Oh my gosh. And then, of course, for the Dungeon Run, you can see it on the Caffeine, and it's live on Wednesday nights. And then you can see the repeat, which is on YouTube, and then, of course, the podcast. So definitely check. And when the Dungeon Run, and there's many episodes of the Dungeon Run on YouTube as well, Rundown.
Many episodes of the Rundown on YouTube, and it's a wonderful show. Highly recommend. And I feel like it does offer something different from the other online role-playing shows that are out there right now. And I'm not. It's very hard to compare those shows because they're all so vastly different based on who your players are and what setting you're in, etc. But I really do think that the Dungeon Run is a very special addition to the online tabletop community.
And I know everybody is friends of mine now, but regardless of that, I don't watch any other shows now. It's only Dungeon Run. I mean, I don't, as far as RPG related stuff goes, I feel like they set the bar so high that the other stuff I go back and watch, I'm like,
Yeah, I mean, kind of, for sure. With that being said, I'm doing a tabletop game in 2 hours.
Yes.
2 hours.
Yeah, so
I'm
tell folks about that.
I'm Dead online in 2 hours.
And where are you playing that?
For Hunters Entertainment. You probably know the link better than I do because you just did one of their
games
I
just did one last night, which was awesome. We played Icarus, which we had a ton of fun last night. So definitely go check it out. Hunters Entertainment on Twitch. You'll be on there tonight. It'll be good. Do you know what? Can you spoiler what your character is tonight?
So in Outbreak Undead, there's a whole way that you can play it as a life simulation where you play yourself, and there's a personality test that you can take online to find out what your real world stats would be. And so I think a lot of us are probably playing as ourselves. I'm going to do some character fine tuning. After you and I are finished talking, I'm going to eat some dinner real quick and then do some character fine tuning before we go live at 9:00.
Good.
But yeah, I will essentially be like the apocalypse version of myself. So I'm sure I will have gained some much more needed survival and much more needed skill set than I would necessarily have now. I don't know how the skill set building a PC is going to come in handy 1 year into the apocalypse. But yeah, essentially I'll be playing me.
That's pretty awesome, actually. I like that a lot. That's a nice that's a nice twist. I'll definitely tune in tonight for sure. Absolutely.
Yay!
It'll be fun. All right, well, thanks again for being here, Trish. Oh, so fun to have you here. We'll have to do this again. For sure.
Thank you for having me, and it would be my honor and pleasure.
Thank you so much. And chat, thank you so much for hanging out with us and all the great questions. We really appreciate it. And my official sign-off, as I always do. Until next time, folks, we'll see you at the table. Night, guys. See ya.